What's up, you guys? Vac Attack here. I do apologize, I have not been uploading long-form videos in a while. Truth is, I've been incredibly busy with work and everything else, but don't worry, I have a long-form... Hi, Artemis. Anyways, I have a long-form video for you today, which will be a full in-depth review of the Bissell Rewind Cleanview Pet. Now, yes, I do have another Cleanview Helix style machine, but I never really did a review on it, but you guys have seen videos on it. I have shown videos on this too, but I've never done a full review on any of these. Well, maybe on the Cleanview Helix technically, when I did the comparison, but yeah, that's not about that machine, it's about this machine. So yeah, so this is one of the later Korean Cleanview Bissells before they switched to the newer styles. So, you know, they had the Power Force Helixes, the 1240s, the 12B1s. I believe these were still around during the time, but then they changed to the 9595s after these because people were complaining about the bin setup and filtration, which is honestly valid. The bin setup, the Helixes have always had like I don't want to say the worst bin setup, but they've always had the most issues with filtration, at least I'd say, because the filter would get dirty, but as you can see, it just comes out and this stays in here. Meanwhile, with like an older like Cleanview 2 or like a Power Force bagless, this would actually be attached on the bottom, but this one just stays here. This filter is actually in good shape though. But yeah, speaking of filtration, this has a 3-level filtration. So it has this filter. You also have your little filter in here, which I can grab. Which this filter is dirty. I will have to clean it, but there is a filter in here, which a lot of the older Power Force baglesses and Cleanview 2s had. This is very similar to a Cleanview 2. You could kind of tell, but obviously there are some differences. And then this just pops back in. And then this goes back in there. Now, as you can see, it does say Helix system provides continuous suction. That is if you take care of these things. These are higher maintenance machines. I will say that. I'm not going to say they're horrible, because they're not horrible. I think they're great machines. They just require a lot more maintenance than like a Power Force bagged or like a Dyson or something, but they're still good machines for what they are. I don't know how much this particular model was at the time, but I know the Cleanview Helixes were like $90, like $80, $90. I'd assume this was probably about the same, if not a little bit more. Yeah, this particular one has the newer 12 amp logo where it just says 12 amps. It doesn't have the nice like 65, 85 or 94 style 12 amp logo, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. But yeah, this base is very bland compared to like older Cleanviews. But yeah, speaking of the base, this is a 15-inch wide path, so this does use the 15-inch brush rollers. Yep, and it does feature dual edge cleaning, but I wouldn't really call it dual edge cleaning because that's not really what it is. It advertises as that, but it's, you know, it's a budget machine. It's a Bissell. It's not actually like dual edge, but you know, it is what it is. Now this particular model does feature a headlight, as you can see right here. And then the headlight lens is easy. You just take a flathead, pry it out. This takes the smaller Bissell bulbs, the peanut ones. I have an LED in here because it matches the color of this machine better. But really, it's up to you. You just make sure that it's within the voltage and wattage. You don't want to go over because, you know, yeah. You just want to make sure that you're using at least something to a similar voltage. Wattage, you can go lower. With LEDs, they're usually going to be a lot lower. Why did I say very much? A lot. Sorry. Excuse me. What I meant to say is an LED bulb is usually going to have a much lower power output than a halogen, because that's what they're made for. Like, for example, in my Cleanview Special Edition, the original bulb was 20 watts. The LED that's in there, that's brighter, by the way, is only 4. That's just how LEDs are. That's just part of new technology, but yeah. Anyways, moving on from the headlight, I did forget to mention this has 5 height adjustments. So obviously you have your bare floor, but this is not at all a bare floor machine because there's no squeegee, there's no brush roll shut off because this is a belt driven system. It's not a clutched or it's not a clutch system, and nor does it have a separate brush roll motor. It's belt driven, so yeah. And it's not a soft brush roll either. These are incredibly stiff bristles. So this thing is pretty much useless on hard floors unless you want debris to just scatter everywhere. Anyways, you have a low, medium, high, and high pile carpet. I usually run mine on medium because that seems to be about what the Bissell seem to do best with my carpet. But you want to make sure that you're adjusting it accordingly to your carpet. Don't be one of those people who just run it on the lowest setting because, oh, it cleans better. That may be true, but if you're using it on the lowest setting and your carpet is not a low pile carpet, what you're doing is you're putting more wear and tear on the brush roll and belt because they have to work harder and it's more pressure. So what can happen is it will shorten the lifespan of your belt and brush rolls. So I would not recommend running it on the lowest setting unless your carpet is actually a low pile carpet. Also, it will make the machine incredibly hard to push, so it's really not worth it. With how the height adjustments works, you want to make sure that it's making enough contact with the floor, because you could hear when the brush roll is making contact because it'll make that whirring noise that a lot of people know about. But you also want to make sure that it's not hard to push. If it's too hard to push, it's too low. If it's not making contact at all, it's too high. Excuse me. But yeah, that's how you adjust it accordingly. This does feature your typical Bissell attachments. You have your extension one right here, and then there's supposed to be a crevice tool right here, but on this particular machine, it is unfortunately missing, but that is what it is. Oh, I almost forgot to show the third filter. There's another filter right here. This is the exhaust filter, which is a HEPA filter, obviously. Some of the old Bissells had like a little like a pulse motor filter that was just like a black, like, I don't know how to describe it, but if you know, you know. But most people just upgrade to the HEPA filters because the HEPA filters do help quite a bit. So that is nice to have. And then that just pops back into place. This one's not like the other ones because the rewind's in the way. So you don't open it like a door, you just pop it out. And then when you're ready, you put it back in. Now going back to the attachments, there is supposed to be a crevice tool right here, but this one's missing. But it does have the extension one. It does have this turbo brush, but this one's a little bit different. As you can see, it's not a standard turbo brush. It's a little interesting. This one doesn't like to spin for whatever reason, but that's not really an issue because I don't really use a turbo brush on this thing. If I was to use a turbo brush, I would just use my 96, my 6596. So yeah, that's really not a big issue right now. But I will try and get that adjusted. Hold on. Why is it not popping on? There we go. Yeah, with these mounts, it's a lot harder to get it on and off with one hand compared to like the 96 ones where it's just held on by a little tab. But yeah, and then moving on with attachments, you of course have your combination tool, which this one's actually pretty clean. And it's a little dirty, but not terrible at all. You can also, if I remember correctly, yep, okay, yeah, you could twist this so you can choose what side the suction comes from. It's hard to do with one hand, but as you can see, this side is completely blocked off, and this side is open, so it would come through this side now. Now these bristles are super stiff, so it's not very good for anything delicate, but you can use it as an upholstery brush. That will work just fine, so really whatever your preference is. But you're better off using like a Dyson, because you can use Dyson attachments on these Bissells, at least most of them, at least most of the newer ones. So you'd be better off getting like a Dyson dusting brush or whatever, because those actually are soft. So yeah, but this still does work for the price, but I just be careful with like anything delicate, because you could scratch it or something. Now let's look at the cord rewind. This one has a cord rewind. I'm not sure how long the cord is, but it's very self-explanatory. You just pull the cord out. And then eventually there should be some yellow tape right there. Now this one's coming off because it is an old machine, but it is there. That's your warning, letting you know that it's about to end. And then the red tape, that means it ended. And then you can plug it in and go. I don't know why this has this on it. There's no reason for it to have that, but it is what it is. And then when you're done, you just hold this button and it is worth mentioning this cord rewind is a lot weaker than like a Hoover Elite Rewind. As you can see, it struggles quite a bit. These Bissell rewinds have always been very finicky. I really could not tell you why. They've always been that way. Hold on. Gotta do those two hands. Yeah, no, it does get annoying at times. So if you're someone who that might annoy, then this may not be the machine for you. Because yeah, if you're someone who doesn't want to have to maintain this machine or maintain their vacuum all the time, this also wouldn't be the machine for you, because it is quite high maintenance. But anyways, and then this does have a stretch hose. It's not a deluxe one like the 94, but it is a stretchy hose. As you can see, it's a black stretchy hose, which it's split. I don't think so. I can't tell, honestly. You probably could put like a 94 style hose on here if you wanted the nicer deluxe stretch hose, but this one will still be better than any plastic hose. So that is nice. You do have your carrying handle back here, which pretty self-explanatory. You use it to carry the vacuum like so. And this is a very lightweight vacuum. I could probably pick it up with my pinky. Yep. It's a pretty lightweight vacuum, at least considering it's a Cleanview. But yeah. And then moving on to this side, I did show the filter. You do have your rocker switch right here, which on these Korean Bissells, for whatever reason, up is off and down is on. I never understood why, but that's just how they do it. Excuse me. Anyways, yeah, I do prefer these rocker switches just because I just find them to be more stable, I guess. Like, you could tell when it's on or off, obviously, and it just feels like a higher quality, at least to me. So yeah, that's just my opinion. And then moving back here, your fill line is somewhere in the middle. It's a little lower than some other machines, but it's not as low as like a 68C7, which is all the way down here for whatever reason. Anyways, taking this out, you do have your separator, which this one is kind of dirty. I will have to clean it out, but as you can see, this is a Korean style one because it has these grooves instead of the holes. But then that just, you just pop that in. But yeah. One thing I will give Bissell credit for is they are stupidly easy to work on. Like, you could take apart one of these completely all the way to the motor in like 5 minutes, if you know what you're doing. They're stupidly easy to take apart, at least from my experience. Now, I love Bissells, don't get me wrong, I love Bissells, but they're definitely far from perfect. But then again, they're also budget machines. You're not paying, you know, for like a Dyson or something. You get what you pay for, at least I'd say. And these are pretty solid machines for the price. Now, I'm not one of those people who make the Cleanview Helixes my whole life. I'm not one of those type of people. I do like the Cleanview Helix style machines, but I'm not going to make it my whole life. In fact, my personal favorite Bissell, at least my personal favorite Cleanview, would either be my Power Track or my Cleanview 2 Special Edition. And that's not because it's a special edition, that's just because I like the way the Cleanview 2s look. And I like the bin setup. But the original Cleanviews I also really like because they're super easy to clean out. With something like this, you know, you have to pry out the top bin, yada, yada, yada. Well, on an original Cleanview, there would be a knob back here you twist and it just comes out. I wish they kept that design. They didn't. Oh, well. But, yeah. And then here's the foot release, which the foot release on these always go bad. The foot release and the cord release, or sorry, the handle release. That's what it's called, the handle release. These are the first things to go bad. Another thing that goes bad is the cord release. Obviously, this does not have a cord release because this is a rewinds, but you get the idea. But yeah, let's look at the bottom real quick. You can see there's your height adjustment wheels. Here's your brush roll. And accessing the brush roll and belt is easy. You just take out these screws, take this plate off, and you pretty much have it. Excuse me. All right. That concludes the talking section, or the commentary section of the review. Now it's time to run the thing. So we're gonna pull the cord out. I'm gonna pull it out all the way because I have a fairly large living room. And then there is a cord hook right here, so what you do is you just put it through, then your cord is in place. Then you just put the switch in the on position and the vacuum will turn on, like so. And there's flight. Then you push this pedal to release the vacuum, like so. Now we do have to go plug this in over there, as per usual with a lot of my machines, to get the rest. But this machine did get almost all the way over here, which is pretty good for a Bissell. Some of my Bissells have stupidly long cords. A lot of my Dysons do. Excuse me. Well, this one's fairly large, or fairly long. Anyways. And yeah, there's the quick running of the Rewind Cleanview pet. Let's see what it picked up. Okay, that's not too terrible, honestly. It's pretty good. Yeah, one thing about these Cleanview Helixes, for whatever reason, they seem to do a very good job at cleaning. I couldn't tell you why. I don't know if there's a lot of fine dust. I see some. Mostly hair. But you could tell that it is, you know, picking up a good amount. Let's check that filter. Yeah, that filter's pretty caked in dust now. Actually, no, it's not terrible, but it's definitely caked in dust. I probably should clean it out before I use it again, which I've been kind of lazy with these things lately. But yeah, definitely a good machine. Unfortunately, these are no longer available, as these were discontinued a long time ago. I can show the model sticker. Yeah, 2012. So yeah, it's an old machine. Well, it's an older machine, but it is a good machine, in my opinion. And what is it? 13 years later, this thing is still running like a champ. So yeah, except for the cord rewind. Well, actually, oh, there's a knot in that cord. Give me a second. Don't know how that happened, but it did. No biggie. Okay, this time it did a little bit better, but yeah. It's a nice machine. I do like this thing. I don't daily it for obvious reasons, but it is still a decent machine. And I am glad to have this in a collection. I was going to sell it, but I'm probably going to keep it, honestly, because I like the color. And yeah, there's my full in-depth review of the Bissell Rewind Cleanview pet. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you guys again next time. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Peace.